My relatives declared that I'm forbidden from starting a family unless they approve it first. Be me, 29-year-old Tyler. Been with my girlfriend Lisa for a little over 3 years now. We're in a stable relationship. Live together. Recently started talking seriously about having kids. Nothing dramatic, just a natural next step. Doctor visits, financial planning. Looking at baby name lists during lazy Sundays. All pretty normal stuff. At least that's what I thought. I come from a very traditional family. They're not just close-knit, they're involved in everything. I'm the oldest of 3. Since I was a teenager, I've been treated like the one who's supposed to lead by example. They never said it outright, but the pressure was always there. Do well in school so your siblings follow. Choose the right college. Take the respectable job. Date the right kind of person. Every choice was silently monitored and often nudged in a direction they preferred. For a while, I went along with it to keep the peace. But things started to change when I moved in with Lisa. We built our life together. A few weeks ago, we had a family dinner. It was at my parents' house. My younger brother and sister were there too. Nothing special on the agenda, just dinner, small talk, the usual. About halfway through the meal, I casually mentioned that Lisa and I were thinking of starting a family. I didn't make a big deal out of it, just tossed it into the conversation like you would when talking about buying a new car or planning a vacation. The entire table went silent. Then my father looked up, said completely straight-faced that I would need to wait until the family gave me the green light. I laughed thinking he was joking, but no one else laughed. My mom just stared at her plate. My brother nodded like this was common knowledge. My dad repeated himself only more firmly this time. Added that no one in our family had ever had children without first getting their approval. According to him, it's a tradition. Lisa was sitting beside me. I could feel her body go stiff. She didn't say anything in that moment, just quietly watched the conversation unfold. My brother jumped in and backed up my dad, explaining that this has always been the way things are done in our family. My sister stayed quiet, which honestly said more than if she'd spoken. The rest of the dinner was tense. Everyone tried to move on to lighter topics. But the mood had already soured. Lisa and I left soon after dessert. On the drive home, she told me plainly that the whole thing made her extremely uncomfortable. She said it felt controlling and cult-like. I didn't argue with her because deep down I agreed, but I wasn't ready to confront it yet. The next day, I got a call from my mom. She asked if I could come over alone to talk. She didn't want Lisa there because this was a family matter. I went. When I arrived, both my parents were sitting at the kitchen table. There was a document between them. My dad pushed it toward me without much of an introduction. It was printed stapled and titled, Family Agreement Child Planning Protocol. I wish I was making this up. The document stated that before any child is conceived, the couple must receive written approval from both parents. It had sections about the child's religious upbringing, schooling preferences, even a clause that any baby name had to be approved to ensure it aligned with family dignity. They were completely serious. I asked if this was some kind of elaborate prank. They said no. My mom explained that this document had already been signed by my brother and sister. She said it was an important part of maintaining family unity, that signing it was about trust, about legacy. I said no, not rudely, just directly. I told them I wasn't going to sign anything like that. My dad's face went red. He said I was acting like an outsider. My mom looked disappointed, like I had just betrayed them. They didn't yell or get aggressive. They just said they were deeply hurt, that if I continued down this path, I'd be tearing the family apart. I walked out of that house without taking the paper. That decision split everything open. My parents stopped calling. My brother sent me a text saying I was being selfish. My sister hasn't reached out at all. That dinner conversation, that document, it flipped everything. Lisa and I weren't even pregnant yet. Already we were being told how to raise our future child. The worst part, finding out my siblings had signed similar agreements years ago. They never said a word, not once. I kept thinking about what kind of pressure they must have been under to go along with something like that. It felt like I had stepped out of reality and into some kind of twisted script. Since that night, nothing has been the same. After walking out of that meeting with my parents and refusing to sign their so-called family agreement, I didn't expect everything to spiral as fast as it did. A couple of days passed. I convinced myself maybe they just needed time to cool off. Despite everything, I decided to try talking to them again, perhaps naively hoping for a calm conversation to clear the air. I showed up at their place in the late afternoon. My father opened the door and let me in, but his expression was flat. I sat down with both of them at the kitchen table again, thinking maybe I'd misread how serious they were. That wasn't the case. Right out the gate, my father said I was being selfish and irresponsible. He brought up the family legacy again, saying I wasn't fit to continue it if I refused to respect the rules that have kept the family strong for generations. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't need to. He spoke like it was already decided, like I was some kind of failure for wanting to make my own choices. I didn't argue. I just left. That same week, Lisa tried reaching out to my mother. She thought maybe a one-on-one conversation might go better. They met at a coffee shop near our apartment. Lisa came home looking like someone had flipped a switch off inside her. All she said was that it was a waste of time. My mother didn't want to listen. She told her straight out that she wasn't part of the family, so she didn't have a say in anything that involved it. That included children. We stopped bringing it up after that. It felt like every attempt to talk was met with a wall. A few days later, I got a text from my sister. She asked if we could talk just the two of us, something that felt at odds with her earlier silence during the family dinner. I met her in a quiet park not far from her place. She brought her toddler along in a stroller. At first, it was small talk, work weather, nothing deep. Then she told me that she'd signed the agreement a few years ago when she got pregnant. She said she didn't feel like she had a choice. She just bought a house with help from our parents. She felt cornered. She didn't say it out loud, but I could see the regret in her face. After that, I took another look at the copy of the agreement they tried to get me to sign. I hadn't read every detail before, just the bold stuff. But buried deeper in it were clauses that weren't just about timing or approval. There were sections about the child's religious education, mandatory holiday attendance, required school types, a list of acceptable names. It even mentioned who would be allowed to babysit. It read less like a family pact and more like a company policy handbook. Lisa saw it too. She didn't say anything at first. But that same night, Lisa stopped making jokes about future baby names. She stopped talking about nurseries. She barely spoke at all during dinner. One of my closest friends called to check in a few days later. I filled him in on everything. His advice was simple: cut them off at least for now. He said no good would come from letting them push their way into something so personal, that maybe distance would show them how serious this was. After thinking it over, I sent my parents a long message. I told them clearly that I would not be signing anything. I would not be forced or manipulated into doing so. I said I was taking a step back from the relationship for now. I needed space to figure out how to move forward. That was it. Nothing harsh, just boundaries. They didn't respond directly, but still managed to send a certified letter days later bypassing the block. Instead, they blocked my number and Lisa's. A few hours later, I was removed from the family group chat. Email messages bounced back. It was like they'd flipped a switch and erased me. Though oddly, they still managed to deliver letters and packages afterward. 3 days later, I heard a knock at the door. It was my younger brother. I hadn't seen him since the dinner. He didn't ask to come in. He just launched into it right there on the front porch, telling me to stop acting like a stranger, that I needed to apologize to our parents, fix what I'd broken, sign the paper, and do what was expected. It turned into an argument. We didn't yell, but it was loud enough that some neighbors started looking out their windows. Eventually, I told him to leave. He walked away, muttering something about how I was going to regret everything. That night, Lisa brought up something we hadn't seriously talked about yet. Lisa said, maybe it was time to move, not just to a new apartment, but to a new state. Somewhere far enough away to start over. Somewhere the family couldn't just drop by uninvited. I didn't answer right away. The next morning, I got a message from one of my cousins. We don't talk often, but he reached out to tell me that I was letting outsiders influence me. He told me the family just wanted what was best, that if I knew what was good for me, I'd get back in line with tradition. That was when I realized this wasn't just about my parents anymore. The pressure was spreading, quiet calls behind my back, side conversations. The whole thing felt like a campaign, so I started writing everything down. Every message, every conversation. Every time someone reached out, though, I was confused how they still contacted me after blocking us. I backed it all up. I didn't know if I'd need it for anything legal, but I knew I wasn't going to let this turn into a he said, she said mess later, because things were only getting more serious. After everything that had happened with my family, the dinner, the agreement, the visit from my brother, and getting blocked, I decided to stop guessing and get a legal opinion. I made an appointment with a family lawyer who specialized in estate matters and domestic legal boundaries. I brought the printed family agreement along, plus screenshots of messages and a summary of what had happened so far. The meeting didn't take long. The lawyer flipped through the document, scanned a few clauses, and told me plainly that it wasn't legally enforceable. No court would uphold something like that, especially not when it hadn't been signed willingly. Even if I had signed it, he explained. Anything involving future children would still be governed by actual parental rights laws, not a family document. It was basically a scare tactic dressed up in legal-sounding language. Knowing that we took a breath and picked things back up, Lisa scheduled a visit with an OB-GYN. We both went, We asked questions, talked through timelines, risks, everything. It was a regular appointment. But for the first time in a while, it felt like we were moving forward again, not just reacting to what my family was doing. When Lisa's parents heard about the situation, they were immediately concerned. Her mom invited us over for dinner that weekend. We sat down with both of them and explained everything. No filters. They listened carefully, then told us we always had a place with them if things got worse. Her dad even mentioned they had a basement apartment that we could stay in short-termed, if we ever needed to move quickly. A week later, a certified letter arrived at our door. It was from my father. It was written like a legal notice. Formal tone, bullet points, bold print. He said that if I went through with having a child without the family's blessing, I would be disowned. I would be removed from any inheritance. No future involvement in family matters. The letter was signed by both of my parents. I didn't reply. I scanned it, filed it away, and added it to the growing stack of records we were keeping. That same night, my sister called from a number I didn't recognize. She asked if I was alone, then told me that our parents were now contacting aunts, uncles, cousins, anyone who might be able to convince me to fall in line. According to her, they were framing it as a family emergency, saying I was being manipulated and needed an intervention. All of that pressure, the threats, the side calls, I started to fall behind at work. I couldn't focus. I made mistakes. My manager noticed and asked if everything was all right. I ended up taking a week of paid leave to get things back under control. During that time, Lisa and I booked a quick getaway to a cabin about 2 hours outside the city. No signal, no neighbors. Just a place to clear our heads. We hiked, cooked simple meals, slept in late. On the last night there, we talked openly about the kind of family we wanted to build. One with love, safety, and zero outside control. We agreed that nothing, not even family ties, should interfere with the home we were trying to create. When we got back, there was a brown package on our front step. No return address. Inside was a bundle of baby clothes. Tiny socks, onesies, even a blanket. Underneath it all was a folded note. 6 words written in permanent marker. Don't make a mistake you'll regret. We didn't open the door fully for the rest of the day. The next morning, I installed a full set of security cameras. Front door, hallway, backyard. I filed a non-emergency police report, listed the package contents, and submitted screenshots of the letter we had received. The officer said they couldn't act unless there was a clear threat, but they logged the report and gave us a case number. That night, Lisa brought up moving again. This time seriously. She said it wasn't just about comfort anymore. It was about safety. We looked at nearby states where we had no family ties, started a short list. Places with good hospitals, affordable rent, decent job markets. The following Monday, my workplace receptionist flagged me down. She said someone had called asking to check on me. The caller said he was my father. She didn't give him any information and passed the call to HR. HR told him that personal information wasn't disclosed, then added his number to the block list. That was the last attempt they made to reach me through work. At that point, it wasn't just uncomfortable or awkward anymore. It was starting to look like a campaign. Quiet pressure through the mail. Surprise visitors. Watching through others. The things they were doing weren't normal. They weren't loving. They weren't about family. They were about control. We spent the next few days researching relocation services, privacy shielding for rental contracts, how to change contact information with minimal traceability. Our lawyer helped us understand what to document and how to keep everything organized. Every time we received something, every message, every call attempt, it was all recorded and filed. It was clear now that we weren't just dealing with parents who didn't like our choices. We were dealing with people who believed they had a right to decide what kind of future we could have. We weren't going to let that happen. We started house hunting in a city 4 hours away. It wasn't just about getting a fresh start. It was about creating distance. We looked for places and neighborhoods that weren't flashy, but were quiet, safe, and far enough from anyone who might know our names. We didn't tell anyone where we were going. Not even friends, just our lawyer and her parents. During one of the showings, the realtor walked us through a 2-bedroom apartment. It was tucked behind a row of townhouses, with a gated entrance and limited street access. Halfway through the tour, she made an offhand comment that surprised us. She said someone with our last name had called earlier that week, asking if their son had been looking in the area. She thought it was part of a surprise housewarming plan. We didn't correct her. We just finished the showing and left. 2 days later, I got a message from a former high school teacher. Proof that even after blocking me, my parents were still finding ways to use third parties to contact me. I hadn't spoken to him in years. He said my parents had reached out to him online to reconnect, asked if he knew where I might be living or working now. I hadn't updated my contact info with any public groups or alumni sites. They were digging, That same week, Lisa received an email from a burner account. It had no name, just numbers. Attached was a PDF, a scanned copy of the family agreement. Only this time, it had been updated to include her name in the approval sections. Her signature line was blank, but the message was clear. Our lawyer told us that while this stuff wasn't technically illegal, it was entering gray territory. He explained that if the pattern continued, especially with attempts to access private records or impersonate us, it could cross into harassment. He advised us to document everything and not engage. We went ahead and signed a short-term lease on a property under a privacy shield. It was a 6-month rental managed through a legal proxy that kept our names off public directories. We didn't list our forwarding address with any family members. Even our utilities were registered under a trust name her father helped us set up. We changed mailing addresses for bills and subscriptions, sent notices through encrypted emails, used a P.O. box for anything physical. One morning, my company's human resources department flagged a call. Someone had contacted them claiming to be a background investigator. They asked about my work performance, attendance, and department. HR didn't provide any information and reported it to corporate security. They traced the number to a prepaid phone registered out of state. It couldn't be confirmed who placed the call, but they added extra monitoring to my file, alerted the building's front desk in case anyone came by. That same week, Lisa found 2 of her car tires partially deflated, not completely flat, just enough to be dangerous at highway speed. We checked for nails or punctures, but found none. It looked deliberate. We filed a report and installed a dash cam the next day. We also started alternating parking locations, began checking the car before and after every drive. I sat down that night and wrote a formal letter to my father. It was short-typed and mailed through certified delivery with return receipt. I stated that all contact needed to stop immediately. No phone calls, no emails, no visits, no third-party communication. I included a copy of our attorney's business card, warned that any further interference would be considered harassment, and handled through legal action. 2 days later, he responded in his own way. He posted a long message online on a public platform, framing me as unstable, manipulated, and disloyal. He claimed I had abandoned the family and lost my way. He didn't mention Lisa by name, but made it obvious who he was referring to. It was dramatic and full of half-truths. The post gained traction among extended family. Soon, I was getting texts and calls from relatives I hadn't spoken to in years. One aunt asked if I was okay. A cousin messaged to say I should make peace before it's too late. Another relative left a voicemail asking me to remember where I came from. It was clear they'd all seen it and taken his side. That night, I deleted all my social media accounts. Every single one. I changed my phone number and didn't share it with anyone outside her parents and our lawyer. We also set up new email addresses. Everything else went to a secure forwarding address. Lisa did the same. Once that was done, things finally went quiet. We kept the cameras running. We stuck to the new routines. We stopped going to the same coffee shops, stopped using shared logins, stopped connecting to unsecured Wi-Fi. We were starting from scratch in every way possible. New neighborhood, new daily routes, new online presence. It wasn't easy. It wasn't smooth. But for the first time in a while, we weren't reacting. We were just living. No messages, no knocks, no emails disguised as concern. Just quiet. We knew it probably wouldn't last forever. But we were ready either way. We had gone almost a full month without hearing a single word from anyone in my family. No messages, no strange packages, no surprise visitors. It was the longest stretch of silence since everything started. So we used the time to schedule our first visit with a fertility specialist. The appointment took place at a clinic in our new city, a one we picked carefully far from anywhere we'd lived before. The staff were kind, the facility clean, and everything went smoothly. After a few tests, the specialist explained that there might be complications on Lisa's side. That could make natural conception more difficult. It wasn't a guarantee, just a possibility. We didn't tell anyone about the results, not even her parents. We kept it between us and decided we'd take it one step at a time. That quiet period didn't last. Just a few days later, I was pulled into a meeting with human resources at work. They'd received an anonymous envelope in the mail. Inside were printouts of fake emails, supposedly written by me, full of inappropriate language and false claims about coworkers. There was also a typed letter accusing me of hostile behavior and unethical conduct. The formatting looked professional, but HR flagged the content right away as suspicious. They launched an internal review, including checking my email activity, work history, and recent communication logs. I was cleared in less than 48 hours. Still, the fact that someone went to that length was unsettling. Later that same week, Lisa found out about a fake Instagram account impersonating her. The profile used her full name, her face, even some old photos pulled from her locked account. but the captions were twisted, edited to imply things she never said or did. The account followed several of her clients and industry contacts. One photo had been altered to look like she was holding a drink while pregnant, even though she wasn't pregnant and didn't drink. It was meant to humiliate. We reported the account and submitted a cybercrime complaint. Our lawyer forwarded everything to a contact in digital forensics. The profile was taken down within 72 hours. All screenshots and links were saved for the case file. Around the same time, the private investigator her parents had quietly hired earlier reached out with an update. We hadn't heard much from him since we moved, but he had been running background checks on suspicious activity surrounding us. He had discovered that someone had been tailing us during our medical appointments. The license plate of the car matched a rental under a corporate account, linked to a consulting firm, one that had no direct connection to my family, but was found to be billing services through a third party. After more digging, the investigator confirmed that the third party was a friend of the family, a man my father had once worked with and remained close to. The entire arrangement was structured to avoid direct involvement, but the connection was clear enough. My family had someone watching us through a hired proxy. Not technically illegal, but enough to build a solid pattern of behavior. That was the final push we needed. We went to the county courthouse and filed for a temporary restraining order against both of my parents. The documents included everything: emails, letters, recordings, the surveillance findings, the impersonation, and even the HR report. The process took most of the day. We had to speak with 2 different legal clerks before being assigned a hearing date. The judge reviewed the evidence and granted the order after an expedited review. Due to the documented pattern of harassment, my parents were barred from coming within 500 feet of us, our home, our workplaces, and from attempting any contact through mail, phone, internet, or third parties. Within a week of the order being issued, a letter showed up at Lisa's workplace. It was typed unsigned and full of baseless claims about her professional ethics and personal life. Her manager opened it, documented it, and immediately contacted legal. The company issued a cease and desist notice, added her to their internal high-risk list for protective purposes. Security protocols at her office were updated to block unknown visitors. Front desk staff were instructed not to accept any unverified packages. Her parents also took additional precautions. They updated security at their home and added motion lights and video monitoring. They told us that if we ever felt unsafe again, we could move in with them at a moment's notice. No questions asked. Despite the constant back and forth and all the disruptions, we kept pushing forward. We didn't let it stop us from going to follow-up appointments. We didn't cancel our routines or hide indoors. If anything, we became more focused. We checked locks, checked mail, checked devices. But we didn't stop building our life. We knew it wasn't over yet, but we were no longer reacting the way we had before. This wasn't about fighting for control. It was about protecting what we were creating together. No matter what happened next, we were done letting anyone dictate our future. The first round of fertility treatment didn't work. The clinic called after the blood work, and the results were negative. We took a day to regroup, then scheduled the next cycle. There wasn't much time to process. Between doctor appointments, work hours, and keeping up with our security routines, we barely had room to slow down. 2 weeks into the second round, we were home late one night watching a documentary. There was a loud crash from the front of the house. We ran to the living room and found the window shattered. A rock had been thrown through it, landing near the coffee table. Taped to it was a note in permanent marker: blood before betrayal. We called the police. They arrived within 15 minutes and took photos of the damage. The officers reviewed our existing harassment report and escalated the situation to criminal intimidation. The rock and note were collected as evidence. They said the message alone changed the level of the case, especially considering the restraining order already in place. The area was canvassed, but no one had seen anything. The camera at our neighbor's house caught a figure in a hoodie walking quickly down the street, but it was too dark to identify. The next morning, Lisa packed a bag and went to stay with her parents. It wasn't permanent just until the glass was replaced. We upgraded the front window with reinforced material. Her parents had already been increasing security around their home, so it made sense. I stayed back to deal with repairs, insurance paperwork, follow-ups with the police and our lawyer. While that was happening, a documentary filmmaker reached out through a secure email account I'd set up for legal communications. They said they were researching a piece about family control and generational trauma. Someone had passed our situation along through a legal advocacy network. They were respectful, offered full anonymity, and promised full editorial input. We declined. It wasn't the right time. We were still stabilizing. Privacy mattered more than reach. The baby came after 19 hours of labor. The staff followed the plan to the letter. 2 nurses stayed in the room the entire time. No one entered without ID verification. The birth was long but complication-free. Our daughter was born healthy, full-term, and safe. We didn't announce it publicly. No social media post, no name reveal. Just a few calls to her parents, my sister, and the 2 friends who had helped us through the darkest moments. We kept everything off-grid by design. 3 days after we brought our daughter home, a package showed up on the doorstep. Brown wrapping paper, no postage stamp, no return address. Inside was a baby blanket, a pair of infant shoes, and a note that read, "Some bonds can't be broken." The handwriting was familiar. We called the police. They traced the package to a storage unit 1 town over. It had been rented under a fake name, but surveillance footage showed the previously arrested cousin entering and exiting the facility multiple times that month. He was taken into custody that same evening for violating release terms. New charges were added for stalking and harassment. Authorities opened a broader investigation into his financial records. Early findings showed deposits from shell companies linked to one of the family's older business holdings. More subpoenas followed, and the case expanded. Back at home, I received a promotion offer from my employer, lead project manager for a remote-based team. It came with a raise and full flexibility to work from home. No travel, no office presence, just a secured laptop and direct communication with upper management. I accepted. Her parents, who had been part of our journey from the start, established a private trust fund in our daughter's name. It was set up through an independent legal service with protections against external claims. It couldn't be accessed, adjusted, or revoked by anyone outside our immediate family. Not now, not ever. I filed paperwork the same month to legally change my last name. The court approved the request without objection. With that, every traceable tie to the family name was gone, on record in law and in legacy. My sister began the same process for herself and her child. New IDs, new records, full legal renaming. She enrolled her child in a new preschool under the new last name. Closed out any open accounts that used the previous identity. We met with our legal advisor again to finalize the last of the documentation. A will, emergency guardianship papers, power of attorney, everything structured, so no outside family members could challenge custody or state claims. If something ever happened to us, we named 2 trusted people as co-guardians, both from outside the family tree. The nursery was finished a week later. Soft lights, neutral walls, storage bins with names written in washable marker, a monitor in the corner motion sensors outside the door. We didn't add decorations with names or initials. We didn't hang any framed family portraits. We weren't trying to forget where we came from. We were just focused on where we were going. One night after a late feeding, I stood in the middle of that room holding my daughter. She was asleep in my arms, warm and safe. No cameras outside flashing. No cars parked too long on the street. No phone calls rerouted through lawyers. No letters in the mailbox with warnings or threats. Just peace. And finally it felt earned, not given, not granted. Built choice by choice, day by day, this was our family now.